There's an Ocean's 11 version of this movie somewhere, but it's not what really interests me. What interests me are the people, the characters, how they relate to each other, how they act to each other, and the crazy wisdom that I see in Boston all the time. And I wanted to use this as an excuse to tell that story, to tell those stories.
Genre in film is a way we group stories by shared style, form, or subject. In the new film, Any Day Now, writer-director Eric Aronson takes the familiar framework of a heist movie and flips it on its head. Instead of leaning on nonstop action, Aronson delivers a sharp, character-driven story that leans on comedy, anchored by veteran actor Paul Guilfoyle, whose wit and depth shine in every scene. At the center of the story is the infamous 1990 Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum robbery in Boston, one of the most audacious and unsolved art heists in American history. 13 priceless paintings vanished without a trace. But here, the crime is the backdrop to a more intimate tale, how people in a specific time and place can collide in ways that reveal our quirks, contradictions, and unexpected outcomes. As you're about to see, Eric Aronson and Paul Guilfoyle had an undeniable chemistry as director and actor, bringing Any Day Now to life. Join us as they share the inside story of making their film on Inside the Arthouse, starting now.
Hi, my name is Greg Lemley.
And I'm Raphael Sparge.
And welcome to today's episode of Inside the Arthouse. We are joined today by Eric Aronson and Paul Guilfoyle, and they're here to talk about their film, Any Day Now. Hi, Eric. Hi, Paul.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
Great to have you. Thanks for beaming in.
Yeah, nice to be here.
So I guess you can, I could make an argument that, ever since there's been feature films, great train robbery, there's been films about heists. And this is kind of a heist film. So, Eric, was that an inspiration, not specifically that film, but to join the long list of classic films about heists, or is a little bit of trepidation, perhaps?
I don't know if I set out to initially talk about heists, but in Boston, you can't get away from crime. It's everywhere. It's in the water. I think in my lifetime, the two great stories, the two great myths of my city were Whitey Bulger and the Gardner art heist. And Whitey Bulger's not funny.
Yes.
Very hard to find humor there. But the Gardner heist, okay. So,
yeah. Although we do have a tongue in my movie. That might be the connection.
Yes.
Oh gosh, the kind of the mystery of we never know what happened to it, I guess, is sort of a wonderful invitation for story.
Right. No heist film is ever specific. Oh, it's not no heist film, but it's not always about the heist. It's about characters, and in this case, certainly about the humor.
Yeah, I'm very interested in genre films because it lays down a track that everybody knows that's very simple. And our experiment was how far can you get away from that? And if you have a track that everybody knows, like a heist film, that allows you a lot of freedom to put the stuff that I don't care about in the background. There's an Ocean's 11 version of this movie somewhere, but it's not what really interests me. What interests me are the people, the characters, how they relate to each other, how they act to each other, and the crazy wisdom that I see in Boston all the time. And I wanted to use this as an excuse to tell that story, to tell those stories. And it's very French. Paul and I had several days on the set when we said, are we going to make this the French version today? And, yeah, let's go French today. So the French did this a lot. The French took our genre films, our 50s noir films, and they turned them on their head, and they talked about what was interesting to them. So I have a theory about the French New Wave. I feel that it was due to a bad translator in Paris who was translating films incorrectly, so that when Edward G. Robinson would walk into a movie, into a room holding a gun, he would say something like, "I'm so lonely."
And that's what his analyst said.
Yeah, I wish I could have said that in the movie. That would have been a good line to use. I'm sorry we didn't go French that day.
I love that.
I just think the French thought, oh my God, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I think Truffaut and all those guys said, let's start making movies about that, like that. So that's really the original, inception of the idea.
That's a great note. I can comment on that a little bit, that, that it's French, and also in the way that being from Boston, which has a revolutionary spirit, as the French, of course, do, liberty, equality, and fraternity. I think that there's a kind of a spirit of, like, in our movie of what Boston as a character presents, which was at the time and still exists, and it certainly exists in my lifetime. There's a class struggle in Boston where there was a kind of a revolutionary spirit of people in the working class trying to be smarter and more kind of savvy and certainly more ballsy than the upper class sort of Boston Brahmins. And there's a little of that, and part of that in this kind of notion of why people were so bold as to kind of think they could just go steal Rembrandts and Vermeers for their own reason. I think there was a certain kind of revolutionary spirit, although people might disagree with that because it's so, kind of stupid in the bottom line, but people did that with this act. I thought that it was a kind of a revolutionary act in a way, a group way to kind of, have a piece of the bigger pie. I mean, in talking to a lot of people around the country about the movie, that was particularly, I found, in the Boston idiom, this idea of this conflict of class.
So does going in and stealing a Rembrandt, if you're not someone who would have a Rembrandt at home, is a way to kind of essentially step into another class, as it were?
Yeah, well, I mean, I also think in my character, who was leading the way in this, he would thought that he understood the true intrinsic artistic value of the Rembrandt. He talks about the Sea of Galilee, it was the biggest bang for the buck, or, he put it in those kind of terms. I mean, he felt, an expert on samurai blades, which recently I just got a gift from a person who watches the movie a lot, our movie, and he gave me a samurai blade as a gift. But, in other words, people think they were actually even more artistically expert than the people who were in charge of the art. There was a little of that in the movie, too. That arrogance really is the bottom line.
I mean, Eric, what you've done is, and this is what I felt watching it as an actor, this is the kind of movie that any actor would want to be in. They're just wonderful faces. They're really interesting characters. Each of them are very specific to Boston, and you've given them so much to kind of play with. There's no cookie cutter there's not a single cookie cutter in this movie. Everyone is kind of just unique and different and kind of a little off and interesting. So you've created an incredible sandbox for actors to want to jump in.
The difference between a script and a movie is a lifetime and a gulf. But yes, I fired the writer often, and
which was all right. Took him out back and shot him, right? Yeah.
Yes, which was a delight to be able to do that. Most writers who become directors, they look at the script and they try to shoot the script. I think the independent filmmaker's job when they go home at the end of the day is to say, was it good? And I think the Hollywood filmmaker goes home at the end of the day and says, did we get the scene? Did we achieve the dictates of the script? But my attitude all along was, can I create a sandbox? You used the exact word that I was thinking about. Can I create a sandbox for incredibly talented person like Paul and Taylor and the other people in this movie? Can I let them play? And that was the spirit with which we made the movie, and hopefully that the actors felt that they had that kind of freedom to play more,
Yeah, I mean, I can say that just in support of that you felt right away. That was the sort of the contract going in, the sort of blood contract between everyone. We had some time to rehearse, and not a lot, but we definitely knew we were in it as a team. And so that was, we weren't trying to execute a script. And that was great. That was the beginning of this kind of reliance on each other for the artistic kind of synchronicity that we developed.
And it translates into the scenes because they just have a kind of I guess I just want to say sort of a lightness and
looseness.
Play. Like the scenes between you and Alex in the bar early on, and like you feel secretly like they're having a really good time doing it. I don't know. It's like a wink or something. I don't know. I can't explain it.
Yeah, there felt. I mean, as you mention it now, and I'm only thinking about this for the first time. There's almost a kind of relatedness that everyone felt. I mean, in a strange way, that is the soul of this city of Boston. Is everyone feels kind of in some way like they're cousin of someone, everyone, because they're suffering under the same sort of overriding kind of dome of pressure and history in some way. But I think that everyone really, it was really felt very easy to relate to each other.
My understanding is, I mean, of course, you wrote the script and then you directed it, but that you have previously sort of, this is your first feature that you've directed, but that previously you've written quite a bit and for other people, I guess, right? And you've then handed it over. How did it feel being behind the, in the driver's seat and taking the wheel, I guess?
Well, I remember our first shot was in a car, and Paul and Taylor were driving in a car, and it happened. And then I walked over to them and I said, "Please don't make me look like an idiot in front of all these people." And then Paul and Taylor, they're like, "We got this. Don't worry, we got this." So there was definitely a bit of terror. It's walking without the tightrope. And then after the terror, I started to love it. And I felt like this is kind of what I was meant to be doing all along. My writing is very particular, and therefore when it gets in other people's hands, it changes quite a bit. It's not cookie cutter. It's not typical Hollywood fare, and it sort of became that. And that's what the frustration of that is what drove me to this anti-establishment way of doing things.
It's interesting, Eric, you bring up the first shot. I've been lucky enough to do some movies in other parts of the world. I remember in Croatia, doing a movie in Zagreb, which is a really big film group. After the first shot is done, a whole team arrives with champagne and little cakes and stuff. Just the first shot. And everybody's got glasses of champagne, and they're all, because you got one shot off. The first shot of the movie. I remember having this huge speech that I had to give to a bunch of people. It was a very lot of dialogue. But I went like, no, it's fine. I'll just have a sip of champagne, But it was like amazing. They went right to full-on celebration and then moved it all away when we went back to work. The feeling that you had is kind of like probably international.
Yeah.
Come on in, the water's fine, right?
Oh, that or
let's get the first
hardest
one
step of
in
every
the
journey
can.
is the first one, right? You take that first step. Now, okay, now you've started, and there's no going back.
You're in.
Take the first pylon and climbing Everest, whatever. Let's go one step at a time after that.
All right. Well, I'll talk to the studios, and we'll see if we can make that a standard part of every Hollywood feature. It might actually improve them. So you never know.
No, this is an independent film. You raise the money. You've done this outside of a studio, and you've been able to maintain your artistic vision and tell the story you wanted to tell. And obviously that was very conscious. Is this something that you thought about shopping to a streamer or to a studio or something, or was it always about trying to want to do this independently?
It was always about doing this independently and trying to maintain as much control over everything that happens, not just the production, but also in the steps after the production. I wanted to attack it all with a spirit of learning and responsibility. I had saved up a lot of money from all those Hollywood gigs that I had as a writer, and I saved it for this specific purpose, so that we could just make it on our own, so that we didn't really have to answer to anyone, and that was important for me for my first step. I wanted to be outside the system and see what would happen without any of those pressures.
And we're the beneficiaries of that. Everyone who worked with you, Eric.
Just being able to really call the shots. What's the hardest part, having finished the film, in terms of kind of being a free agent? I guess what have you discovered?
Well, I've discovered something that's not going to be a surprise for anybody here, but that the system is rigged. The festival circuit is not what you think it is. That often the movies that get onto the festival circuit, they're basically marketing tools because they've already been bought. I don't mean to offend anybody, but maybe I do. The Accountant 2 won the Audience Favorite Award at South by Southwest this year.
Gee whiz.
That should tell you everything you need to know about the festival circus. It's for sale. So yes, outside the system is very, very hard to get inside the system. But within, the spirit of this character that Paul played and the spirit of the movie, I love it. I can't get enough of it. I love being outside. I love knocking on the door. I love pissing people off. And I may be one of the few people in independent films that's having a delightful time trying to get my film into the world.
You like the challenge. Yeah.
I like the
No,
challenge.
it's not just the challenge. It's telling people who said, no, this isn't art or this isn't this, whatever. Well, fuck you then. You know what? We're going to show my film anyway. You know,
Well,
I know there are audiences out there that appreciate it.
And you have an appetite for it that's pretty, and passion for it. That's pretty amazing. I was telling Eric just today that, I'm used to doing a movie where, sort of, I made the metaphor of the red line in Boston, famous MTA. And it goes from Ashmont to Harvard Square. And it's like 12 stops from Ashmont to, but I thought a movie just goes 1 or 2 stops. Like, you get off at Ashmont, that's it, and the movie happens. For some reason, I thought there was this overwhelming critical mass that would receive or decide a movie's basis on its longitude. And Eric says, no, we're going to stay on this till we go all the way to Harvard Square. It's sort of like hit all the stops. And I admire that. It's just not in my history of understanding how the movie works. And I think Eric knows more about it than me. And I'm amazed at the creativity that everyone came up with in a whole world where the media world, including the world, what we're doing right now, where it gets authentic and creative, and people really, the appetite for talking about a movie becomes an art form in itself. Because there is no real critical mass that decides the longitude of a movie. It really has to do with how people are willing to present it and get people interested in movies as an art form. That is, that's rare, actually. I get a lot of friends up in Boston, and I see them, and I went to school with them, and I would say, hey, you want to check out this movie? And I can tell right away, they're going, yeah, I'll get right on that. I know for sure they're not going to watch it. But, because there's just a sort of a dysfunctioning kind of system. Synapses aren't going off the way they used to go off when movies were had more of a presence in our lives, and there was an excitement about it. But Eric has gone right through that sort of desert storm with his own kind of artillery, and really has sort of, like, as Arthur Miller said, attention must be paid in Death of a Salesman. So attention must be paid. It's really remarkable, Eric, what you've done.
There's the writing of the movie. There's the actual. There's 4 mountains as I see them. There's the writing of the movie. There's the actual production of the movie. You can die on either one of those mountains. And then there's the marketing of the movie, and really sort of trying to find your audience. And I'm interested as a filmmaker. Like, what are you doing to find interesting? Like, how are you piercing the marketing the marketing veil, as it were? What kinds of things are you discovering that you can do?
Well, we made a film at actually the very moment that the film industry collapsed, which is disconcerting for some people. I'm delighted because that means opportunity. That means I can fight. I have just as good a chance as the big boys at finding my people. And how wide my market is, I don't know, but I can find my people much easier than ever before. So I teamed up with these 2 ad execs in New York. These 2 guys are like the creative directors, and they came up with a campaign for me. And we're in the process of rolling out that campaign. We made ads for the movie like you would make a traditional ad.
Your trailer is fantastic, by the way.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
But, for me, trailers are kind of, yes, I do like the trailer, but they're also, it's like when you sell a Snickers bar, you don't walk around giving everybody a small taste of the Snickers bar. What you do is you sell the idea of a Snickers bar. Mm-hmm. You sell the feeling of a Snickers bar. And that's kind of what we did. So we went out and we made a series of ads that have nothing to do with the movie, but that they're not even about the premise of the movie. They lead you to the premise of the movie. And this is the Ghost campaign that we worked on. These ads are amazing and funny.
Tell me more. What do they look like, or what's
the ghosts of Rembrandt, Vermeer, Degas, and Manet meet at the Gardner Library at midnight every night, and they try to solve the crime. And the problem is that these guys are idiots, and they hate each other, and they've been stuck there since the museum was robbed 35 years ago, and it's a little comedic clips. They're each some are 30. I think they're all 30 seconds. Some are a little longer. Some are 60s. And at the end, it says, "You want to find out what really happened? Go see Any Day Now." And then so it's not the premise of the movie. And the advertisers are very clear to me, and they said, "Don't use your actors. That would be confusing. Let's use people that aren't even connected to the movie." So that was one thing we did. The other thing we did was we opened a gallery in New York City in March in Chelsea, and we showed the 13 stolen works of art. And
Yeah.
Wow.
we opened
We're
the
going to have
doors
them up
and-
at the theater.
Yes. Greg has so kindly, you don't know what you're in for, but Greg is going to put up these masterpieces that may or may not be real, but I'm telling you, you couldn't tell the difference. They are beautiful.
Wow.
And we worked with Improv Everywhere, which is a company in New York that does some really interesting things. And we hired people to stand in line outside the Chelsea Gallery, and that drew a lot of people, because if there's a line in New York, people are going to get in it.
Right. What are they? Yeah, let me in. Yeah.
We hired security guards, and if you went up to a guard and you said, "Wait a minute, are these real?" The guard would say, "This was the lines that we told him to say was that's what they told me." And so we had a whole gallery. We were open for a week in Chelsea, right in the middle of the Chelsea Arts District, and we kind of, and then the FBI came and they raided and they took away some of the art.
They did?
And that was captured on video, and a lot of people have seen that activity.
Wait, the real
online.
FBI or just like FBI actors came in? Like you had, like the
That's
FBI?
what they told me.
That's what they told me.
That's
That's right, Paul. Good timing.
Who can tell these days?
That's right.
Yeah, I have to just commend you on this. This is again the idea of like getting off at Ashmont Station instead of staying on the train, the Red Line. I mean, it went all the way to Harvard Square, and the idea, I think, Eric, this idea of having the gallery and then seeing the movie, and there are a couple of friends of mine from Harvard Square who just really missed seeing a lot of the art in the movie. They wanted to see the art and more than the story. And so now they get to have the experience of seeing the actual work in a gallery and then going into a movie theater. I guess you guys are going to do that. Yeah. It's such an event. It makes the movie more of an event. And I think that's kind of bigger than just watching a movie, because the idea of going out to a movie by yourself to see a movie doesn't exist anymore.
Greg, how important is that from your point of view as a theater owner?
Look, anything that can draw attention to a film and get people in the mood to see it is absolutely invaluable. And that can be whether it's marketing stunts like this or just filmmaker Q&A, anything. Because I think people want this experience. They want to be we want to be back together again, watching movies and laughing. In many cases, and that's the one thing that really hasn't been present to as much a degree is comedy. As much as I started by calling it a heist film, I mean, it's also just a character comedy. Actually, it is. Yeah, I think this is great. I love it.
I would go so far as to say, Eric, that if you're not doing what you're doing or not thinking the way you're thinking, that it's not going to work. Getting people back to the movies is, you're swimming against the tide. You're salmon trying to get back upstream, but there's a dam in the way. You have to really kind of reinvent ways of sort of thinking about it. And the fact that you're open to that and you understand that you're not like, no, I wrote the movie, I made the movie. It's like, it's the movie. It's like getting butts in the seats is so important. And I think a lot of filmmakers drop the baton and don't realize that. And so the fact that you're doing that is it's fantastic.
Yeah. And even online, I think there's just a certain degree of laziness with streaming. It's like, it's on the platform, but we're not going to do anything to direct people to it. In fact, we're going to hide it because we have other things that we want their eyeballs on. And so we've got to get people to watch stuff and then start talking about it and sharing it and telling how much they enjoyed it. And more people are going to see it that way.
Yeah, and I have the longevity. I'm going to stick with this. I'm never going to give up. Someone in Mexico City saw our gallery in New York, and they want to show it. Also, do exactly what you're doing, Greg, which is show it in a theater with the art next nearby, and then we're going to take it to Amsterdam. I'm just going to keep going. With studios, the only people more desperate than any of us are the studio people. But what they do is, or even the smaller studios, is that they have like 16 watches, and they say, "You like this watch? No, you don't like it? Okay, what about this watch?
Right.
Or what about this one? You like that? It's like those old salesmen." And they just move on. They don't care. I care. So that's the difference.
And no one's going to care about your movie as much as you do. No one is. Right?
And you only have one watch. That's true.
That's right. Unfortunately, that's right.
Yeah, and you only need one at a time. I don't need two.
You only need
watches,
one.
Right? Yeah. I wanted to see this in the theater, of course, in anticipation our meeting quickly. I watched it. I live in New York, and I went to see the French Connection at the Gene Hackman week at Lincoln Center.
Oh wow. Yeah.
I hadn't seen it in a long time. And then I came home and I watched your movie, and you're just straight up great, man. And I can't take my eyes off you. You are, so stunning. And I was like, God, this is like,
It's
he
great
should have
work.
been, like you're very much of that world of those kinds of actors that, that are, you just can't take your eyes off them.
I got a chance to work with Gene Hackman, and talk about a guy who I thought I was being economical sometimes in the work I do, but he was really economical with what he did. I mean, was really very present, direct, and Jack Nicholson too. Those kind of guys, they actually really prepared. When they're working, the work came off them powerful and clear, and quick and simple. So those guys are the guys that you mentioned are the people that I looked up to and were in my world when I was a young guy and could see that. And that's what attracted me to, this work. I'd almost want to call it the sense of being an artist. I mean, but it is a work that has a distinction that to attempt to get to that economical place that these guys get to in this honest truth and reality and existential notion of true life on stage. They set the standard.
They did, without a doubt. I mean, you can tell me you're not interested in talking about this, but I'd be curious if you wanted to, just in terms of a script like this, just how you find your way to this guy. He's such a great character. He's a poet. He's a tough guy.
Thank you for asking. Yeah, of course, I'd love to talk about this.
You're an actor studio guy, so I get it. Yeah,
it's not easy to not talk about it. And you know what happens too, and I've talked about just a little bit about economy, and I haven't talked about this before with anyone else. And being around, like we talked about, being around these things for a long time, and even roles in the theater and in movies, that pretty quickly, almost immediately, there's a kind of a feeling of like the seasonal change in the air. I mean, the whole thing changes. Everything kind of adjusts as when you open something up. That the awareness of all of it seems to be in concert to being something that you can now work with. It's like, I mean, if you were a mechanic, you came into a shop that had all the tools and lifts and every single thing you could possibly want. And all you have to do is choose the economics of it, the economical way to rebuild and build and assimilate this into your own self and back and forth. And then with Eric's openness and ability to communicate a copacetic relationship, a relationship that both of us were going to work together to allow something to transpire. You need to have that. That has to happen. We can't be at odds. We can't be following we can't be the servant of two masters. There's another literary reference. But we can't do that. We have to be the servant of one master, the movie itself. And through the character, and so Eric would be very specific about dealing with me and the character and the other actors. He learned that pretty well. At the same time, we felt like we had an ally. It's almost impossible not to do it without a relationship that is someone that's like an ally. I mean, Lee Strasberg, you mentioned, and I mentioned the Actors Studio. You kind of always wished and hoped that he would give you his blessing in a strange way, because he was pretty raw in his assessment of actors. And other great David Wheeler, another guy who was a mentor of mine, was pretty, open to always exploration of, had a really big open heart, but he definitely would only cast you if you were, 100% in. So there's these things that have happened, and it happened with Eric and I, and I knew that this was something that I could sense, like it's fall in New England. I mean, I could sense the weather would be right in sync with it, and you kind of have to be that way to do anything good.
Oh, that's such a great way of putting it. I love that. I love that. That you're literally you're feeling it, you're sensing it, it's on your skin.
It becomes like omnipresent. And you want to, as an actor too, there's a theory and technique to it that you want to stay in that as much as you can, and you don't want to get too many distractions while it's there. So you hopefully, you just sort of stay in it, that place. It's kind of singular. This work, it seems that it's not as singular as a painter, but it's, because you get to work with others and you get to experiment with others. It's great. But there is a singularity to being inside a world of someone else.
That's such a great answer. It really, what it does is it just draws our eye to you, and we just can't wait to see where you're going to go next.
Well, I'm glad to tell you that I sometimes don't know, which is always another part of it that works good.
First time singing on screen?
No, I've sung. My mother was a singer. I wish I sang better. Actually, I'd like to do a couple more takes if we do. Do the Mexico City one. Maybe I'll sing it in Spanish.
Paul is one of the very few actors that can do something simultaneously. That's a miracle.
You mean a couple things? You mean several things at once? You mean?
Yeah, that was, we're talking about the way we approached that scene with the music, but that's how we approached every scene. Can you both elevate this kid and make him better while you're using him? So Paul was both using this kid to get what he wanted. That's the genre. I mean, there's no way around that. That wasn't even a question. But at the same time, can he also make him better? And plenty of actors can do things. There are really good actors who can do things consecutively, but I can't think of more than a handful, a few, that can do things at the same time. And that's what we were mining all the time. And Paul he's one of the few people that can do it.
Yeah, that's the.
We have a clip that you sent, and I think this might be a good entry point to sort of say, let's look at
a little bit of a scene from Any Day Now.
We're going to rob the museum, and we're going to need your help.
Yeah, what? No, I thought we were even now.
No. But you do this for me, and your debt will be paid.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I don't know.
He's scared. Of course he's scared. It's okay to be scared. Scared is good. It means you're on the edge of your unknown, open and curious. It's where all great things happen. So, you want to be great? Or are you happy with the way things are? Take some time to think about it. But not too much.
That's great. Paul, you teed that up for me so perfectly. It's almost like you knew that I was going there. So thank you. That's
Yeah, I didn't need to have a guitar fall in this lap. Yeah.
No, but it's this blend of menace and affection, and it's intoxicating, obviously, I guess, for Steve.
Yeah.
Yeah, the edge of your unknown.
Great line. Thank you, Eric. Or did that was Paul's, actually.
Well, no, we everything we discussed, it's all.
Unlike some writer-directors and who I've known or encountered, that they can be very tight about their words or very tight about how they want to, it's got to be this way, and this is my vision, and I wrote this, and I'm directing it. You have I want to say sort of a light hand and clearly sort of a desire to want to collaborate. That's unusual. Do you know that for a writer-director?
I mean, I've written for writer-directors who did just what you described. That's exactly what I didn't want to do. There was a huge difference between a film and a script. If so, why shoot it? Because if it has accomplished what it wanted to accomplish on the page, then there's no reason to go shoot it. That would be just a good read. You want to breathe life into it. You want to take risks. You want to let it hang out. It's going to go through a lot of hands. I like having my private time, and then I like opening it up to people that I trust, collaborators that I believe in, and letting them run. And that was like, we said it before but that it was my job here, was just to I built the sandbox and let everybody play. And as long as, sometimes it goes a little bit too this way, okay, then my job is to see, all right, let's just stay in
We're not going to drop the guitar in this shot. We got another idea, right? But you give people room to be creative and to find it and to discover.
Collaborate.
And really collaborate, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's really not like the Navy or the Army. You don't really want to be confined by hierarchy and roles. You know what I mean? In the process, some people really like that. They think it creates order. And actually, this sense that Eric gives the freedom of the edge of your unknown, the idea of like having a sort of a disorder to the whole process allows you to come up with your best ideas that you present to Eric. You don't really just come up with frivolous ones. And the ones that you really do want to collaborate with Eric, it's what collaboration is. It's a kind of responsibility to have good ideas and an association, and to kind of in the same sense, everybody gets a chance to, in a way, feel the boat move. You don't have to steer it, but you can operate on the boat as it's being steered by Eric.
That's so well said. That's dead right. That's dead right. I wish more writer-directors understood that. It's not...
Well, I don't think they have the trust or the feeling. I mean, frankly, Eric, we took a while to cast it, and we had a bunch of lobster rolls before we decided to do it. And so we would meet. Eric, by the way, knows every great restaurant, the mom and pop restaurant in the entire Eastern Seaboard, probably more than that.
Nice.
But we would find places to meet and talk, and make realize that we wanted to be destined to do this together. And it's important. It's great that it was Eric's first time and my maybe 500th time that we would get to meet and work together, and it was one of the best experiences that I've had. And I've worked with all the directors that you could list.
You've opened in New York, and you're about to open in Los Angeles, and what's the rollout for the film?
Yeah, we had a limited release around the art exhibit in New York, and then we're just doing multiple phases. The latest phase is this LA. We're going to open in LA. We don't know what our rollout is going to be. We don't know what the next step is. That's what's so delightful,
Yeah,
we go to Mexico next is our next stop. We're going to maybe go to Amsterdam. What's appealing to me about Amsterdam is because it's a home of Rembrandt, and just keep running the theater, running it in theaters, running it wherever we can, and finding its people. My whole career as a writer, like you said, it's very solitary, even though they bring you into the studio to smack you around a little bit. Mostly you're alone. And, that's why I wrote this thing and decided to direct it, is to meet people. And so I'm finding my people. And like Paul is my people. I've been looking for Paul my whole life. I just didn't know it. Maybe there's people like me in Mexico City, and I'm going to go find them.
Sounds like we're all on the edge of our unknown, open and curious. That's right.
Yeah. Well, look, for LA audiences, you're going to have a chance to see the film starting August 22nd when it comes back or comes to play at the Monica Film Center here in LA. Go to your Arthouse operator, ask him to, schedule a screening. If it's not playing a week, at least just get one show in there. And let's get the house, because I think there are people that are looking for this kind of film.
It's a really fun. It's
a fun watch.
Yeah,
and we could all use a little bit of that right now.
Yes, right. Indeed. Thank you both for talking about this, and it's really cool to hear. It's so hard to make a movie, and it's so hard to then market a movie, and it's a wonderful film, and I really wish you the best. Really wish you the best.
Very kind of you.
Yeah, thanks for hosting us. We'll come see you when we come out to LA. We're excited.
Excellent. And look for the artwork. It's your only chance to see.
And who knows when the FBI may come at any moment. 13 stolen pieces of artwork
from the Gardner Museum in Boston. Well, as far as I know,
that's what they told me. That's what they told us.
That's what they told me.
I mean, Greg, if you want a raid, I can arrange it.
I've been a big Manet fan. I had a print of Bar at the Folie Bergère in my room when I was a college student. So, but
tell me where it is. I'll go rip it off.
It's great. It's great.
Thank you for joining us here on Inside the Arthouse. Please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, share information, and go find Any Day Now, any way you can find it. Paul and Eric, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, guys. See you next time.
Thank you.
Our show was produced by Raphael Sparge with on-site producer Norrin Dickerson. Supervising producers are Thomas Cassetta and Miles McCreary. Our show was edited by Gabriel Emley and sound mixed by Thomas Cassetta. Our musical theme was composed by Isabel Engman and Gerardo Garcia Jr. Marketing by Gabriel Emley. Show graphics by Jenna DeAngelis. Additional marketing and web design by Stephanie Peters. Filmed at the historic Laemmle Royal Theater in Los Angeles, California. See you next time on Inside the Arthouse. If you liked today's show, please consider subscribing to our channel to learn more on Inside the Arthouse.